Greetings and salutations, and welcome to another edition of the YouTube channel Too Many Plugins and Delta X-Ray. I'm your host Alex. Today we're going to talk about Windows 11 end of life. That's going to come in 6 months. It's on, I think it's the 11th of October or something. It's going to be the end of Windows 10 and Windows 11 is going to be then the default desktop environment. Well, there are several issues with it. First of all, I really don't like Windows 11. The way it works, it's the way it's forcing you to only use Edge. It is very bloated, very strange menu. I hate very difficult to find things. A complete removal of the old system that they have maintained coming from Windows XP, Windows 7, then Windows 8 for a moment, not 8.1, came back to a little bit the same kind of thing, and Windows 10, that kind of setup. It's a very, very different kind of a setup. Full of telemetry. They want to force you now also to always have that Copilot AI stuff installed. Always using an online account. So they're going to make that even more difficult or impossible actually to use offline accounts. Besides one gaming PC, I'm going to run here a hard drive, a partition that I keep just for running my games and my VST plugins and DAW software to produce music that I'm really binded to Windows, the operating system Windows, and big disclaimer, I'm going to talk here further words about solutions to keep on using your hardware, but it depends on what you're doing, there's certain applications that you're just bound to Windows. They just don't work well, or they work very buggy on their Linux. But many other things you can just do. VSTs, by the way, are also very, very problematic in Linux. But After Effects, Adobe Photoshop, those kind of things, very complicated. And Microsoft 356 Office is also complicated. You can run it in Wine, but it will not. And if you need certain integration, even then with your email and software for your company that then integrates even with Office and the Microsoft ecosystem, then you're just forced to stay on Windows, But this is going to be, of course, an ecological disaster. This is because I think it's 80% of the world is using Windows, and then 15% or something, or 15 or 16% is using Macintosh, and then 4 to 5%, jump between 3 to 5% of the world is using Linux, So all these people that are forced to use Windows or don't want to jump to Windows 11, they need to buy new hardware, and computers are in this moment very, 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 very expensive, and you have perfectly good hardware that is a couple of years old that unfortunately doesn't support Windows 11 because it has all sorts of mumbo jumbo with secure boot and TPM chips and stuff to basically how do you call the UEFI BIOS to basically so-called secure your computer more, but makes lots of very recent hardware even completely incompatible, and this is going to be, of course, an ecological disaster for the environment because you have, and then even people that, believe me, there's not going to be so many people that jump to Linux, especially people who use it more professional or are really bounded to certain software by Adobe or for companies or for Microsoft 365 and have everything just integrated like that, These people, those computers are all gonna just land into the landfill, e-waste, and it's really a shame, and. So probably, we're going to overflow of computers in half a year to a year. That are computers that are not Windows 11 compatible. Windows 10 is then end of life in October. And after a couple of months, it's going to be already dangerous to keep on using that for security updates you don't receive anymore and hackers. And then probably your computer quickly will become a part of a botnet. So we don't want that, But, it's really, really a shame, And it's a shame that Windows is so locking down the system and wants you to use only Microsoft products, all this secure boot and stuff like that, Windows is extremely bloated, a lot of telemetry going on. It really slows it down. And I can tell you that because I'm a really distro hopper. I jump from many operating systems, and I have many times on this same hardware experimented. Hundreds of different Linux distributions already out there, distros, and let me tell you, Linux is just way quicker, way less bloated, way less telemetry. It's just way more snappy. Now in this moment, I'm even running just from spinning Rust, an old hard drive, but in Linux it seems with spinning Rust almost that you have an SSD. And if you use spinning Rust in Windows, it's really quite slow, you know. So there you notice already, way more snappy, boots way quicker. Anyway, we're gonna go here to. Then a big disclaimer. If you do also audio production and you have certain hardware or software, then you are Windows bound, you know. But today we're going to go through some solutions of what you can do with your, in quote marks, old hardware that's actually totally usable and works perfectly fine in Windows 10, or even better in Windows, in the Linux distributions. We're going to look at today at some lightweight distributions out there of Linux, and then I'll tell you the ones that I had the best experience with, and we talk also about ones that are a little bit more woke and stuff like that. But we'll start over here and we go to Zorin OS. Now Zorin OS is for me the number one in this moment, and the reason for that is that Linux Mint, they went, this is, by the way, the Debian edition. It's one I can still recommend for certain things. But Linux Mint, they went woke. And they say that if you don't agree with their ideology, that you should stop using their free and open source software. So I don't recommend Linux Mint anymore. And also not because Linux Mint, I have, in the last couple of months, experienced several problems with OBS. By the way, being very slow booting, and games also running very crappy. And what I noticed also is that in OBS, when I record, I have all sorts of audio pops when I use multiple sound cards, so audio sources. Then I get all sorts of strange glitches and pops in the sound. So I cannot recommend Linux Mint anymore. I had several problems. The number one distribution for me in this moment is also because of ease of use, is Zorin OS, and also because it's very good. We're going to talk about distributions all that work on all the hardware that don't use so many resources. I think that's very important. So Zorin OS is very nice. You can install it most of the times on computers that are as old as 15 years old. And I can confirm that I have experimented. I have here, by the way, several PCs over here, two the AMD systems that I use the most. A big disclaimer, by the way, what I tell you here that runs very good on my system maybe doesn't work well on your system. It's Linux is like this. If you're going to migrate to Linux, do it before. Have always a Windows system still running, so you can still do something that you maybe cannot do on Linux. Or if something goes wrong, keep on having a hard drive or another computer available with Windows for the time being. And then experiment and try several different versions and see which version runs the smoothest, the most stable, and also without with all your applications working. Linux can be a hit and a miss, and most of the times it works very well on all the hardware, but you can literally have the issue that one distribution, Linux Mint, works fine on your hardware and Zorin OS not, and vice versa. And even sometimes it's just speed, not even stability, but sometimes stability, or just programs that plain out don't work, or don't like your sound card or your network card. So that's a thing of experimenting, you know. But what I, over the last couple of months, jumped several distributions. The one for me that worked the smoothest, the snappiest also, for me in this moment is Zorin OS, and I think it's a very polished operating system. Doesn't have the easiest layout. Here it has just the same as sort of Windows 7 kind of layout over here. Here, look for the program. Sometimes a little bit convoluted how you do this, but yeah, you figure it out very quickly. Here I was also capable of just recording and streaming and doing everything without any issue. Except my shortcuts for OBS to start recording and stop recording and streaming didn't work. That had to do with this running Wayland. If you just on your login screen change over here on the thing to Xorg, you don't have that problem anymore. If you have problems with what it just does is they work the shortcuts, but if you minimize OBS, then your shortcuts don't work anymore, and that's an issue with Wayland. So there you go. But other than that, I could run everything perfectly. For me, Zorin OS in this moment, also because they ship now with Brave browser, no more Mozilla Firefox that went woke and start selling people's private information. And that's why also they believe privacy is a fundamental human right. That's why Zorin doesn't collect personal data, so advertising government can spy on your activities. This is a very good statement, and also really cool that they took out Firefox that now starts spying on people and selling people's information. They have immediately thrown a Firefox out and installed the Brave browser. By the way, you can find in the description a link if you want to have a complete Zorin OS download ISO to run from a pen, or to install with all studio applications for photo editing, music production, and video editing. I'll link it here down in the description. It's all sorts of files that are created with Cubic, where you can run Zorin OS, having all the applications of Ubuntu Studio, and basically took Thunderbird away also from Mozilla, and you have another mail client over there, and there you have a whole kit to immediately start producing stuff. Okay, Zorin OS for me in this moment is number one. For several reasons, including also experiencing many issues with Linux Mint Normal Edition, not the Debian edition. That is a different distribution, and I've tested that one also. It's actually quite good. Okay, so Zorin OS, also if you come from Windows, have good compatibility also with Wine and with Bottle, so you can get Windows applications many times running on this. It's absolutely fantastic. I've also added integration that you can integrate Zorin OS with your through sort of a KDE connected to your smartphone, and control through Android your Zorin PC and sync files and stuff like that. Really cool. So Zorin OS number one in this moment for me. Number two is Ubuntu Studio. Uses desktop by KDE. Excuse me. I've used this many years. I've installed this. Very stable. This little bit bloated, low latency driver. Good for audio production, stuff like that, but as a normal operating system, it's not the most snappiest because it uses a low latency driver, which makes for audio production the latency go down, but when you're just normal doing other things, then it's actually a little bit slower. So there you go. All the music production applications and video and photo editing stuff that you need. Very stable release. Releases one time per so many years. You can also install this one on any kind of other Ubuntu, Linux Mint, whatever you want. You can install this on top of, or as long as it's Ubuntu based, you can use here the Ubuntu Studio installer, install all the applications on another Linux distro that you prefer or that you're running right now in the moment. So that's a very cool feature also. Ubuntu installer, editor in the terminal, and you can find the Ubuntu installer also in your software repository, the software boutique in your Ubuntu-based distribution. Just search there, Ubuntu Studio installer. This is one I highly recommend. Very good. Get Ardour with it. You get LMMS, all sorts of plugins, all sorts of video editing tools. Everything out of the box. This is also if you're in a location where you don't have internet and connection or very slow. This is a very nice one to install because you have immediately out of the box everything to record and produce and do all sorts of stuff. And then if you then can do that also installing in a location, for example, where you have very bad internet or no internet whatsoever. So for this is also like a really nice distribution. Of course, a bigger download, a bigger ISO, but it's totally worth it. Saves you also a lot of time in downloading separate applications to get everything running. Very good. One of my favorite, it is actually my favorite Ubuntu application out of the box. If you talk about Ubuntu, then for me it's the best one if you do audio production. Zorin OS I do a little bit more for people who come from Windows, and because of the ease of use and compatibility with all the hardware. For this you need a little bit, it runs KDE, it's more demanding on memory and CPU not so much, but graphical also more demanding. So you need for this recent hardware, and also of course you do audio production, video production, and editing, and photo editing. You need good hardware anyway, but you need recent hardware for this. It's quite demanding, KDE Plasma. But I highly recommend this one, and very stable. Used it for many years. My favorite Ubuntu version for production and audio, video, and visual work. So there you go. Highly recommend it. Then the next one is MX Linux. MX Linux is very good for old computers. Very low on resources. You can even run it from a pen. And then you can all the time use it on a pen. And then it even remembers what you have done, altered on the pen. What other distributions don't do when you run it on a pen. It will forget everything. This can even take snapshots. And this is a very nice, very lightweight, very good for old hardware. Especially XFCE edition. But a little bit duct tape together. I think this is more for Linux nerds and advanced users. Debian based, extremely stable. Antix is one version also of it. I can highly recommend it, but it's not easy for beginners. Highly customizable, extremely tweakable. This full of tools to troubleshoot PCs. Both the distribution, other distributions, or even to fix your Windows, you can use MX Linux. Have excellent tools in there, but for the more advanced Windows users. Number one on DistroWatch for a long time, so it's doing very well. But again, what I'm telling you, this is for more advanced computer users and troubleshooting and stuff like that. A little bit duct tape together, a little bit bloated. In the menus, I find many things that are several times things in the menus that actually do the same thing. So it's a little bit all duct taped together. You can choose from many different repositories. That's really nice. So you can find this one with probably the biggest base of repositories you can choose from. So finding applications is really crazy. So you can run this from anything, even from a Raspberry Pi. Even people get this thing running on potatoes. Extremely portable Linux distribution. Absolutely recommend it. But again, what I say, for more advanced users, not for beginners. And I think it's more for really tweakers and troubleshooters. Repair guys, especially repair guys, are gonna love this distro. You can compare it a little bit also. What I can also highly recommend, by the way, is RescueZilla. I can also really recommend. There's also a bootable Linux to troubleshoot both Linux and Windows PCs and partitions and stuff like that. So that one I can also. That's a little bit based. It's called RescueZilla, and it's actually a little bit of CloneZilla, but then more advanced with a desktop in there, so you can even in desktop still do all sorts of things and troubleshoot and stuff like that. Can highly. It's RescueZilla is the name of that. Yeah, it's sort of an altered version of CloneZilla. Anyway, MX Linux, highly recommended. Ubuntu, I recommend also for all the hardware running the XFCE edition. Very good for laptops also this. It's a modern look, enough features for efficient daily use. Works very well on all the hardware. True, a friend of mine is running this from on a very old, I think like 2010 or 12 ThinkPad, Lenovo ThinkPad, IBM ThinkPad, and with some dual core in it. And I think he put it like 4 or 8. No, he put 8 gigs of memory in there, and he's running that for many years, and it keeps on running. Really, never fails. Very stable. Also, Ubuntu XFCE edition, so not bad at all. I can highly recommend this one. This one I can also recommend is Linux Lite, also good for all the hardware and good for laptops. You don't need TPM for this, so you don't need all this story that Windows 11 needs with secure boot and TPM and all sorts of things. So you can run this on all the hardware that's not Windows 11 compatible, or some modern distros that already require also TPM. No TPM required, so you can install this on very old hardware. A little bit of a simpler desktop, a little bit of less graphics in the icons and stuff like that to keep the resources low. But I think this is a project from Australia, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, you can download it by giving nothing, or you can support them by donating some money over here. But if you click over, you can just download it for free. So there's always Linux Lite. One I've tried it a couple of times, think it's okay, but for me a little bit too basic. Then of course Debian. Debian is stable as crazy. I've run Debian on a laptop for DJ work for 3 years or something, 3.5 years. And the most stable distributions out there, MX Linux by the way, also based on Debian. Extremely stable distribution, a little bit older applications and older kernel. When it works, it works. When it doesn't work, if you need to troubleshoot, then Debian is a little bit more complicated. And to install third-party things and third-party drivers in Debian, you can most of the times forget about it because. But it's very stable. Uses older applications and older kernels. But to keep it very, very stable, that's why they use older ones and they test them and they see really what's stable, and then they release it and they hold on to that for a long time. So you're not on the latest of the greatest, but is really the most stable Linux distros that I have tested out there. So Debian, if you look for stability but not the latest applications or kernel, and you're not running the latest hardware, because then sometimes you need also the latest kernel. If you run the latest processors or graphics cards, then you can better be some rolling release version of maybe KD Neon or something, or Plasma or something like that. There's some Fedora and some what's the other name of that? Gentoo you could run also like that, and Arch, something like that. But when you go for stability, you want something really stable. You run all the hardwares. By the way, Debian is very low on resources and is very, very compatible with all the hardware. So Debian Tension, a very complicated installer. So it's really, really, really not a graphical user interface installer. It's just with a little text lines, little text prompts. And it can get very, very complicated, even for people who are, like me, many years in Linux, use Linux already since Ubuntu 10 or something, since 2008 or something. I'm using already Ubuntu derivatives and Debian. So, a very complicated installer, so you are warned. The next one is Linux Mint, the normal versions I cannot recommend anymore, and actually also not this one, because the developer says that they are woke, and if you're not a radical leftist, then you shouldn't use their software, basically. But this one is Debian based, not Ubuntu based, and this one is more stable, and this one I actually tested, and I didn't have the same problems I had with the other Linux versions that were giving me all sorts of problems with low frame rate in gaming, pops and clicks and glitches in the audio when I was recording or streaming, nothing like that. So in that sense, it was more stable, This is also based on Debian, so it uses all the kernel and all the applications, but very, very, very stable. And this is one I think I can still recommend if you don't care about their ideology and stuff like that. But for me it's a little bit weird, when free open source software start being political and telling you that if you don't agree with their ideology, you shouldn't use their free open source software anymore, which goes completely against the whole idea of open source and free software. For me that's very weird. And by the way, I don't understand what software has or an operating system has anything to do with your political orientation. But today, everything is culture war, and they mix everything within each other, and that's why you see today's cinema and video games full of political messaging and virtue signaling and stuff like that, and companies that mix politics with business and are sometimes more busy with politics than actually delivering good products and services for their people. But and sometimes get so lost in their ideology that they even forget that they start themselves being a little bit racist. And but anyway, that's another story. But LMDE for stability and for people who really want to have a sort of a Windows layout, XFCE edition. This is also what they're using over here of Debian. The LMDE, the Debian edition. But the way this is laid out, this is the XFCE edition of Debian they are using over here. Very stable, very good. But depends on if you agree with their ideology. Anyway, for me, I'm not gonna go really into Linux Mint anymore. Also because of many stability issues. Maybe they went woke and they went just how do you call that? Doing a diversity hiring, and now they have a bunch of clowns that instead of people with merit that really know how to make good software and stuff like that. Maybe they now did some diversity hires and now they have a bunch of people working over there that. It was giving me many, many, many problems. And a couple of years ago, Linux Mint didn't used to give me any problems. I remember running 20.3 for a long time, and it was really stable, really good. I had no issues whatsoever doing anything. And the latest version, not the Debian version, but the other versions, Cinnamon and Mate and XFCE edition, the normal flavors were giving me many problems. So no to Linux Mint, except the LMD6 Debian edition. That's the only one I can recommend for people who want stability and want a Linux Mint layout. There you go. Then this one is a really interesting one. And I think that Ubuntu Studio for some time was running this desktop or an altered version of it. It's the LXQT edition. Now this is very lightweight. So that makes it really incredible, very low detail also in everything. Extremely lightweight. I've tested this and it's very interesting, very good looking actually a desktop environment. The only problem with it is not being so much maintained, this desktop environment. It's running in 24.0 for Ubuntu with then the LXQT desktop. And if I remember, I think that for some time Ubuntu Studio were using that now, and now they switched over to KDE. But a very interesting desktop environment. Only it's not being maintained so much. So you're running with a 1.5 or 2 year old desktop environment, and there's not much development being spent in this desktop environment. But I have tried it. It's snappy. It's very low on resources. It looks really, really cool. So no issue whatsoever. And as far as I remember, Ubuntu Studio used to use it. Is, by the way, a very modified version of Ubuntu. And in the old times, they used to use, I think, a modified version of the LXQT desktop environment. So I have used it, and it's really interesting. Very low on resources. So that is. Really good. Only development, not so much. You can run into occasional glitches and also outdated stuff because they don't have developed for it for a long time, and there's not much development money and time spent on the LXQT desktop. But it is actually a good-looking desktop. So there you go. Then here you have just a bunch of distributions that still run KDE. That is Fedora. That's just if you want to have some alternative. Manjaro, which I think is Arch-based. Then you have Kubuntu that runs also KDE. And then Subuntu runs the XFCE. That's the lighter version. So if you want you can go for a Kubuntu that runs in the KDE, the version that's also in Ubuntu Studio. If you want something lighter, more like Windows, Linux, Mint layout, then I would go for a Xubuntu XFCE edition. You get that kind of a layout, or then a Linux Mint XFCE. But what I'm telling you, I don't recommend it anymore. Linux Mint, OpenSUSE, also very interesting. Leap, you have, and then Tumbleweed. Leap is the stable version, and Tumbleweed is a rolling release. So if you're on the latest and the greatest hardware, you have the latest and the greatest CPU, and you want to be on the latest and the greatest applications, then you need to go for Tumbleweed over here. But not good if you're on older hardware. I run it also for some time, OpenSUSE, and I used also the Studio Creator because in the old times you could make yourself ISOs distributions online on the OpenSUSE Studio, which I've used a lot. You have KDE Neon over here, also good looking, high on resources, by the way. There's especially memory, I think, and graphical performance what it needs. So there you have still some options also. And then we have here KDE Neon. This is complete desktop environment over here that you can just download. And by the way, looks over here like a city in Germany or in Austria or something. Yeah, that really looks like this kind of architecture over here. But this is KDE Neon. This one you can download. I think this is a whole operating system in one. So looks also the bomb. Again, you need good hardware for this. I think it's also really a bleeding edge kind of stuff. This, so KDE Neon, I advise you to be on the latest and the greatest hardware. I'm not saying you can't run it on all the hardware, but as far as I understood it, this is demanding, especially for memory usage. CPUs not, but memory usage and graphical acceleration and OpenGL usage. This desktop consumes a lot, and you need. The latest and the greatest. You know, it says here already the latest and the greatest of KDE community software. So you need to be on the bleeding edge of hardware. Don't recommend this for old users. So that's what I can recommend people, and I recommend people to also when you move away from Windows 10, because you need to really, if you then want to go to Windows 11, you need to have the hardware for it, and you need to be then dealing with all their spying telemetry and AI bot that's now forced in there. Whatever the name of that application is, that now an AI completely embedded in there. Copilot or whatever the name that garbage is, and always online, logged in with a Microsoft account, and making it very difficult for you to find things, make it very difficult for you to install third-party applications, and I just want them to be only in in their ecosystem. Want you basically to use only Edge, and you know where it goes, you know, and use Microsoft 365. So otherwise, experiment some different versions, see what runs good on your hardware, get some ISOs. I will leave in the link here ISO for an installation of Linux Mint for anybody who wants. You can download it. It's still over there, the latest ones, with all the studio and graphical and video editing applications pre-installed. So if you have slower network, or you want to install it in a computer that doesn't have internet or something, or you just don't have any hassle and install in one time operating system with all audio, video, and graphical music production applications in once, then there's one there for Zorin OS with all the music, audio, and visual applications and software in it. It's in the link. If you can't find it, you have to go to my channel, Too Many Plugins. You can find the same video you see over here. And there you can find in the description a direct link to download it from my Google Drive. It's about 8 gigabytes to file. You can then, with a USB creator or Rufus in Windows, you can install it on a USB pen, then run it from there, booting from your USB pen, or install it permanently on your hard drive and have in one time all the applications and stuff for audio, video, and graphical editing and production. Download it is in the link in the description of the channel, Too Many Plugins, where you can find the same video with the same name, and there you can download it from. Okay, I hope if people still have questions about all of this, then this is also, by the way, a little bit of a response to a video YouTube where I was also having problems in OBS. There's, by the way, one over here that we forgot still. Sorry, we're going to still go back to that. There's one here that's actually very interesting, and that is the non-woke. Let me see, it's open Mandriva. Here we have, by the way, one that is actually very interesting. This is a very non-woke operating system. This is not based on Debian or on Ubuntu like any of the other distributions. This is a completely independent distribution, this, and these people are not woke. They work with big companies and stuff like that. They are not woke. So I like their mindset. This is an operating system that I listened through the Landuk Journal, Brian, that recommended this. I haven't experimented this yet, but I'm going to experiment it. I'm very interested to see how this actually works in terms of stability and speed. This is one going to be, if you keep on watching, this is going to be now going to install it on a separate hard drive, and we're going to test this because I've never tested this. I'm very interested in this. I'm many times not interested in other distributions other than Debian or Ubuntu-based versions, not like OpenBSD or something like that. You know, I'm normally not interested in that. But in this one, I actually am. I just really want to see how this performs, being completely independent and not based on Debian or Ubuntu. I find this very interesting, and I want to see also how it integrates with many many other kind of applications, and how it's also, by the way, being maintained. So they're talking here. I don't know when this. Yeah, it was still this year updated, so the website's still being updated. But this, they say that is not woke, not driven by some political driven left-wing loonies that like to embed their identity and their politics into pieces of software and stuff like that, So we're going to try it out. According to the Brian Lunduk, these guys are the non-woke operating system out there. So we're going to give this a test run and see how it runs. I'm very interested in this one, so keep on watching, because this is going to be the next operating system we're going to test. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. This was a little one about Windows 11 and what you can do to keep on using your hardware. And then keep on saying to you also, there are some things. You have Steam, you have Proton. Most games you can run in Proton that are Windows compatible. They work good in Proton. But not everything you can run in the occasional issues and glitches. And Linux also, there are occasionally glitches like this. I have everything working well here, but over here my shortcuts didn't work. This is a small issue, not a big issue like with the audio glitches that I've tried to resolve in Linux Mint, and I couldn't resolve it. And the other guy had also that problem in his YouTube channel, that he was saying why he went back to Windows and stopped using Linux, because he was running also some strange version of Arch, I think it was, that he was running, a modified version. And that one was very, very good, but until he received some update or something, or some kernel update or some update in there, all of a sudden it stopped working and start having audio glitches when you use multiple sound cards in OBS, or multiple inputs and outputs through like a USB mixer or something, or a digital audio interface. Then he started having all sorts of glitches, and I had the same issue here also. I had my desktop audio was working good, my onboard sound card, but my mixing table over here, it goes through equalizer and a high pass low pass filter, and I have an analog mixing table over here, has USB output, and if I use that, I had all pops and crackles and glitches and little pauses in the audio, and it sounded really terrible. So there you go. With Linux always like that, you need to play around a little bit, but you can iron it all out. Like over here now, the problem that I had with the shortcuts was just very simple. By instead of running this in Wayland, I just run it now in Xorg. And because Wayland is also very new, so this can also be just a glitch in the way Wayland interacts with shortcuts, because this happens when you minimize OBS. So when you have it open, your shortcuts just work in Wayland, but when you minimize it, then you cannot trigger record like I many times want to do in OBS. I want to have to just minimize, and I want to just trigger record with the keyboard. That in Wayland he loses it, but if you run it in X11, Xorg, in this case, you run Xorg or X11, so when you log in, you start your session, you can hear many times have a little dial here that you can change if you want to start with Wayland or with Xorg X11. And if you run it in Xorg X11, then you don't have this shortcut issue. And I've seen many people having this issue, actually. I don't know if it's an interaction between OBS and Wayland, or if there are even other programs in Wayland where the shortcuts, they lose the connection when you minimize something. I don't know, but I saw that in OBS many people had the same problems. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's keep those old computers running, and someone not even old also. I have here a 2020 computer that doesn't have TPM. It has secure boot and it has UEFI BIOS, but it doesn't have TPM. I have a motherboard here from 2020 from Asus, and also a CPU that is from 2019, 18. Yeah, it's 19. It's the Ryzen 5 1600F. That one is not compatible with Windows 11. You need already a Ryzen 2600, second generation Ryzen, a 2600 you need already. Any 2000 generation or higher, 2000, 3000, 4000 or 5000. You need TPM, you need secure boot, and you need the UEFI BIOS. And otherwise you cannot run Windows 11. And there's also, by the way, some all the graphics cards that also don't work on the Windows 11 because the way those drivers used to hook themselves to the operating system, and now that's a big no-no. So you can even have issues with older sound cards like from Sound Blaster and stuff like that. So and maybe some onboard solutions. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Stay safe, take care, and keep on watching for the next video coming out about the Open Mandriva. We're going to give it a test run all the applications and see the stability of that, and go through Open Mandriva, I think the name of it was. Anyway, thank you very much for listening and watching. Stay safe, take care. I'll catch you in the next video.